That guy, that Karl Jobst. And it's crazy, you know, it's crazy how you can be convinced of something. I remember seeing that Karl Jobst video about Billy Mitchell, and I'd never heard of Billy Mitchell until that video. But I looked at the guy, and I have to admit I made a preconceived judgment. I looked at him and I listened to this Carl guy, and I said, "Yeah, that Billy guy's a piece of shit." And then he ended up not being one, or not being what Carl made him out to be. And then, you know, after all is said and done, and I found out that the whole gist of the story, and yeah, Billy Mitchell isn't the greatest guy in the world, but he, you know, that Carl guy is worse, you know, in my opinion. The kind of stuff he said, and even then, even when he lost, he was such a sore loser about it. Pretty much saying like, "Well, I sold everything to my goldfish, so I don't have to pay you, and you know, in Australia, you can, you know, file bankruptcy like every 3 years or something." And it was like, well, what the hell's the point of taking people to credit claim court if you can just file bankruptcy every 3 years and duck people? I don't know. Maybe I'm looking into it wrong. But what it did prove to me was the power of perception and the power of first appearances. Whoever talks to the cop first, you know. Same with this Carl guy. Like, his video made it out that Billy was the devil, and he wasn't. And what, you know, he ended up losing in court. And like I said earlier, is that Billy guy an angel? No, it's not. But he's not the one that started it, for one thing. You know, the Carl guy's the one that started it, for whatever reason. And yeah, that Billy guy's just the one that finished it. But it made me think, like, man, how many people out there have I made an assumption about that aren't bad people, you know? Same with that Picard, you know, that season 1 that everybody said was horrible, and wasn't that bad. It really wasn't. You know, was it Star Trek The Next Generation back when I was a kid? No, it wasn't. But like I said earlier, it wasn't meant to be. So, I don't know. I think a lot of people make a lot of money off of grifting certain things, you know? Hating the left, hating the right, hating modern stuff, hating the old stuff. I think that, unfortunately, I think hate sells a lot better. Maybe if I was sitting here screaming about hating everything while I was drawing, I'd have like 1 million viewers. You know? Holy smokes. Maybe that's what I'll do. Just start screaming about freaking hating Donald Trump and hating everything, instead of talking about movies and random stuff, you know? Cryptids. That's something I've always been fascinated in, is cryptids, you know, like the Mothman and, you know, Bigfoot and all that kind of stuff. Is that real? People are like, no, it's not real. I mean, come on, Mothman. But it's like, you know, who the hell knows? I don't know. I've never, you know, who knows? There's a lot of crazy stuff out there. There's a fish with a lantern on its head at the bottom of the ocean. Okay? You know, there's tardigrades that you can take into space and then bring them back and microwave them for 5 minutes and they're fine. You know, there's a lot of crazy stuff out there. Well, why is it that every culture in the world, right? Every culture. So you could be, you know, in ancient China in, you know, 500 AD, and then this person over here in, you know, in Europe somewhere, in some little kingdom somewhere in Europe, in England, or, you know, in Germany somewhere, they can both come up with a bow and arrow, coexisting evolution, because it's the, you know, it's the most direct thing to make to do something you're trying to do. They can both come up with that at the same time. They can both have dragons that they believe in and different kinds of creatures that they talked about. And people say, oh, it's a bunch of BS, it's a myth. And it's like, is it though? How did people in China and Japan and people in medieval Europe come up with the same creature? You know? And all sorts of other things. It's just, there's a lot out there that we don't know about. Same with like the mud flood and the Tartaria, all that stuff. Yeah, we don't know anything, man. Who knows what could have happened on this world before us? There could have been so much stuff going on. Alright, so we make this spot here like it's wrapped up. Make it a little darker in the edges. Yep, the mud flood. That one I don't know if I totally believe, but there's some interesting arguments for said mud flood. And who knows? I mean, really, at the end of the day, it all boils down to trust. Do you trust what the history books have told us? You know, that's really it. It's just like, organic food. That apple looks just like that apple. I mean, you have to trust basically what's on the packaging to make sure it's real. But even then, it just boils down to the trust. Do you trust it? I don't know. We'll see. So, for a little guy here, we're just gonna make like weird fingerprint looking kind of things everywhere. Yeah, the Mothman one is one that always got me. It would show up before disaster, and do it, say something to, or, just perch itself on a building or something, and then a couple days later something would happen, And it's like, the Mothman, they say that he was there for the Point Pleasant thing. He was there for, like something in Russia, I believe. I'd have to look into it a little more, but just crazy stuff. And yeah, like I was saying earlier, at the end of the day, we have no idea. We have no idea what was on this world before. All we got is what we've been told. And what we've been told might be a bunch of BS. I mean, look at the crap they tell us today. And then try and tell me that it's not possible, But it's possible. Anything is possible. Yep, it'll probably be like The Expanse, though, instead of like Star Trek. That's what we'll end up. That's just human nature. That's what will happen. We'll go to the moon first, because it's there. Colonize the moon. Then somebody will say, well, we should go colonize Mars, and then we'll go do that. And then, after a little bit of time, the people on Mars will go, what the hell are we paying the people on Earth for again, since they're never here, and we're just paying them for what? And some loud ass will get up, somebody like me will say, yeah, let's fight them. And then that'll go horribly wrong or horribly right. Eventually Mars will become its own thing, and it'll just keep going on like that. We'll go and, we'll settle on Enceladus and Ganymede and Europa, and it'll be the same thing there. There'll be a colony of ours for a while, and then they'll eventually go, what the hell are we paying these guys for again now? Yeah. And it'll just keep doing that indefinitely. Until the end of time. If we manage to get out of here. I mean, who knows? Who knows what could happen in the meantime? If you take that show Expanse and you take out all the fantastical stuff, the alien portals and just any of that stuff, then it's a lot like how life is on Earth today. Some people on the top have a lot, people in the middle have not much, and the people at the bottom don't have shit. Nothing new. Nothing new under the sun, as they say. So, that's probably what it'll be like then. That seems to hit a little more on the nose of how humanity works. It's okay though, The Expanse is a cool It's a cool reality. You know, when I was a kid, I always thought that would be the coolest superpower, would be to go into any movie